Alright guys, West Ham have just beaten Derby by 2 goals to 0 in the FA Cup fourth round to progress and play Manchester United in the next round, which will be a really interesting tie, I think. I don't think it'll be straightforward, even though Man United are in very good form right now, especially as West Ham should have one or two players back by then. But this game, Derby probably, if anything, had more of the ball than West Ham. I haven't looked at the possession stats or anything, but it always felt as though West Ham, that they weren't feeling as though they ever had to dominate this game. Derby played at times quite an expansive style of football, that they were creating the odd chance, and they were getting in dangerous areas, but I think West Ham weren't overly fussed by this, because I think the game plan for West Ham was to get the pace of Jarrett Bowen and Mikel Antonio in behind the Derby midfield and defence and cause them a lot of problems. And I think in the end that's what they did. The opening goal was well worked actually, played into Antonio, who flicks it over the top. And Souček, I've got to give some credit to Thomas Souček here. He's actually taken a fair bit of criticism this season, I think, because he maybe hasn't been quite at the level that he has been over the past couple of years in the midfield for West Ham. But I think West Ham as a whole haven't been as good as last year. Well, clearly not. They're about 10 places below where they were last year. So, that in terms of league positioning, so that there's going to be a few underperformers this season. But Souček did really well for this goal to just head it into the path of Bowen. And Bowen got just enough power on it to get it past Walt-Smith, who actually got a hand to it. And I think he'll feel a little bit disappointed that, given he did get a hand to it, he didn't manage to keep it out. And yeah, that was an attack from West Ham, which it sort of came a little bit as a surprise, because it felt as though Derby were getting forward a fair bit at that point in the game. Both wingers, Barkhuizen and Mendes Lang in particular actually was causing a lot of problems, and he has got some acceleration on him. Jesus Christ, he can go like from 0 to 20 miles an hour just like that. That was my attempt of a click with my weak left hand. That was better. He caused West Ham's back line quite a few problems, especially late on in the first half. They had the odd chance, Derby. I think Knight in midfield had a couple of shots which Areola had to save. Collins came close on a couple of occasions, but there wasn't really enough to suggest that they deserved to win this match, given how West Ham, when they did get forward, did look a lot more dangerous. I thought Bowen and Antonio were brilliant up front for West Ham in this game. Antonio in particular, his first half performance was, exactly what you want from Mikel Antonio. If I was to answer the question of what's Mikel Antonio at his best, I would say the first half in this game. He was constantly getting on the ball, just causing Derby's defence all sorts of problems, and just being really rough and aggressive. Using his strength and getting past players with the ball or even without it. He even on a couple of occasions managed to intercept passes just due to pressure. It was a really impressive performance today from Mikel Antonio in particular, I thought. Second half though, West Ham managed to get a second fairly early on. I think it was the first 10 minutes or so. This time from a counter attack where Jarrett Bowen has managed to get forwards, played through by Antonio, and Antonio makes a really clever run. It wasn't the best defending from the Derby centre halves. There was a bit of a ricochet to get it through to Bowen from Antonio between Forsyth and Curtis Davis, who I thought he had a reasonably decent game actually. Very unlucky not to earn his team a penalty. But Bowen crosses it back across goal, and it takes a deflection of Forsyth and goes right into the path of Mikel Antonio, who heads it home. And yeah, that's game done and dusted at that point. As I mentioned, I think Derby were really unfortunate not to have a penalty around the 65th minute or so, when Ben Johnson made a really clumsy challenge to try and win a header off Curtis Davies. Comes in late, Davies has headed the ball, and yeah, he's knocked him over. So for me, that's inside the box. It was definitely inside the box. The replay confirmed that. I think that should have been given as a penalty to Derby, to be honest, because I think anywhere else on the pitch, as Ali McCoist pointed out, anywhere else on the pitch that is given as a foul every day of the week. So that really should have been a penalty, I think, for Derby. And then West Ham brought on a fair few substitutes, and yeah, it was, you know, more trying to protect the players that started the game, because West Ham have got a bit of a striker problem right now. They bought a couple of strikers in the past 6 months in Gianluca Scamacca and Danny Ings, but the problem is Danny Ings has always been a bit of a, I don't want to say unreliable, because I think at certain points in his career he has just been really unlucky with some terrible injuries. Like, I don't think injuries affected him too much before he joined Liverpool in 2015. He had a good run of games at the start of his career at Liverpool. I think the first couple of months scored a few goals against Norwich, Carlisle, and I think Everton in the Merseyside derby. But then I think, if I'm right in saying, he snapped his cruciate ligament and then was out for a year, came back and had a very similar injury on the other leg. So that's ridiculously unfortunate. But injury problems ever since then have been a constant fight for Danny Ings. So they subbed Mikel Antonio off, and I completely understand why, because Antonio himself hasn't got the best injury record in recent years. So they can't afford to have him injured anyway, especially with the position they're in the league table right now. Like, I fully expect West Ham to stay up this season. I think they've just got too many quality players in their team. You know, you look at Declan Rice, Lucas Paqueta, Jared Bowen, Gianluca Scamacca when he returns to fitness. They've got a World Cup semi-finalist now at centre-back in Nea Figuered. Angelo Bonner, you know, a seasoned professional who's played at the very top for Juventus and has, you know, been in the Premier League for a solid 6 or 7 years now as well. So they've got some quality players. If this team got relegated, I think it would be right up there with the teams who've been relegated, with a brilliant group of players. So I fully expect West Ham to have enough to stay up this season. In fact, I'm amazed it's even close that they're close to relegation. But yeah, Derby, they didn't do it enough in the end. It wasn't a bad performance. That they can say they gave it a go. They certainly didn't just sit back and try to defend. They did give it a real go, like they did against Liverpool in the other cup as well. So yeah, they can leave this game with their heads held high, I think. But yeah, we'll get into player ratings. Start off with Derby. Wildsmith, I've given a 6. I don't think he was particularly at fault for either goal. I think maybe the first one, on another day, he maybe does a bit better and maybe gets enough contact on it to keep it out, but I think he's picking at straws there, really. Smith, Forsyth and Roberts from the defence I've given 5, so I just think whenever West Ham got forward, there was too much space in behind. But I thought Curtis Davies, the veteran of the defence, I think he's 37 now, I thought he was actually their best defender in this game, so I've given him a 6. Then into midfield, I've given Harahan a 5. That's mainly because I was writing down, you know, the player ratings on my notes here, and looking at the starting 11 just to remember, and reading some match stats. I genuinely can't think of anything that Harahan did in this game, so it was a pretty anonymous performance from him, so I can't really give him any more than a 5. And then Bird and Knight, I've given sixes. Knight, I thought in the first half caused a couple of problems with a few shots from long range. Bird, he ran his socks off in midfield, so I think I'll give him a 6 as well. And then the two wingers, Mendes Lang, I've given a 7. I thought he was Derby's best player. It did cause the West Ham defence quite a few problems on multiple occasions. And Barkhuizen, I've given a 6 as well. He was decent early on, but sort of faded out as the game went on. And Collins, I've given a 6 too. And West Ham, Areola, I've given a 6. Not too much to deal with really, other than a couple of long shots. It was a fairly quiet game for him. And then in defence, I've given Thilo Kehrer a 6 and Naya Fagerd a 6 as well. They weren't overly troubled. I think they were protected by the fact that West Ham did play with two defensively minded midfielders and wing backs as well. Ogbonna, though, at the heart of defence, I've given a 7. I thought he was superb on the ball, and yeah, stopped Collins from getting in too many good positions as well. So I think he deserves a 7. And then Ben Johnson for West Ham, I've given a 5 because I thought he was very lucky not to have given away a penalty in the second half, and I just thought at times that he just seemed to lose his concentration. I remember there was one point in the first half where the ball's come to him on his left foot, and he's just tried to sweep it down the line and somehow kicked it out for a throw, and it was a bit of an embarrassing moment for him, and it certainly wasn't his best showing. And yeah, Souček, I've given a 7. Played a brilliant part in the goal for West Ham. Did really well to knock it down for Jarrett Bowen. Used all of his lanky frame to do so, and yeah, I had a good game in midfield. Flynn Downs, likewise, I've given him a 6. Worked very hard in that West Ham midfield. Emerson, I've given a 6. Yeah, it's a similar thing for him in the wing back role. Got up and down the pitch really well, and dealt with Mendes Lang reasonably well. There was one point where Mendes Lang skinned him at the end of the first half, but other than that, he managed to do reasonably well, I think, in stopping Mendes Lang from using his pace and trickery on too many occasions. Bowen, I've given a 7. Took his goal well and did really well to set up Antonio for the second. Fornals, who they gave man of the match, I've given him a 7 as well. I think he was a brilliant performer in this game as well. But my man of the match I've given to Mikel Antonio, because I thought for the just over an hour that he was on the pitch, he was constantly involved, winning the ball in dangerous areas, especially in the first half, and in the second half made a really clever run to get his head onto the ball and put the tie to bed effectively. But yeah, it was a decent game to watch. It wasn't a thriller by any means, but West Ham are through to the next round, and they have a tough task against Man United. I think it's at Old Trafford as well. So I think I'm right in saying that was where they exited the FA Cup 2 years ago to a Scott McTominay goal. I'm really having to reach into my memory to remember that one. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.